Hey, in this video, I'm going to review my collection of a beloved system. They call it the Super NES, the SNES, the SNES. Personally, I call it the Super Nintendo. It's probably what I'm going to be calling it throughout this video. And this might also be my longest video because for my money, the Super Nintendo probably has the most great games of any other platform. Hopefully I can fit this all into one video. I recently had it so that I could make videos longer than 15 minutes, so if YouTube lets me waste their bandwidth, so be it. But, yeah, if I have to put this into two videos, I apologize, because it'll be like an awkward cut, like some of my other videos. So, anyway, let's get started. This is Star Fox. As you can see, they didn't really find the identity for Fox. They never really have. His model always changes, but he looks like an absolute freak in this picture. Kind of looks like a live-action costume furry dude. But, yeah, so basically, this came out during a time when there weren't that many good console, like, rail shooters. And this is a really good one. It has, kind of pseudo 3D graphics, and to kind of give it some personality, they added like these animal like heroes and such, like obviously Fox McCloud and Slippy Toad, Peppy Hare, Falco Lombardi. Because that seems like something Miyamoto would have wanted, just to so it wouldn't look generic. But this is a really fun game. Really great music. Way better than the N64 version music, though I prefer the N64 one overall. But yeah, this is a great game, and try it on hard mode. That's basically the best way to play it, in my opinion. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about this one. Well, maybe except that Nintendo hasn't really use the series properly since the N64 one, so there's only actually been two good games in the series. The rest have been trash, pretty much. Star Fox Adventures was okay, I guess, other than the fact that it kind of introduced this furry aspect of the series that I'm not a fan of with Crystal, but, yeah, whatever. I don't really want to elaborate on that, so next is, oddly enough, Power Rangers the movie. The game. Obviously, this is somewhat based on the first movie, and I got this when I was really young, and I really liked the Power Rangers. And this is actually a really good beat 'em up. There are a lot of good beat 'em ups back then. This is co-op, but it's one of those games where you share lives with your opponent. So or with your friend. So if your friend sucks at the game, and you're pretty good, then he can waste all of your lives, basically. So, I don't know, it's kind of annoying, but otherwise a really fun game. Really good music, too. It's probably going to be a common theme in this video. A lot of Super Nintendo games had great music. It has one of the best sound chips of any video game console. Strangely enough, it was designed by Ken Kutaragi, the quote-unquote father of the PlayStation. But, yeah, let's move on. This is Super Metroid. This doesn't really need any introduction. This is just, like, a legendary game. I kind of call it, like, one of the pieces of the Holy Trinity between Super Metroid, Zelda, Link to the Past, Super Mario World. That's pretty much the Holy Trinity of the Super Nintendo. But This is just a great game, even from the title menu. It has like bone-chilling music in the beginning of the game. It just really sets the tone. Kind of an atmospheric game, as a lot of people say. I don't really like using the word atmospheric, because every game has atmosphere. I mean, it just seems like another word you say for like dark and eerie, which this game definitely is. And for some reason, I can't explain why, but whenever Samus runs in this game, because there's like a run button that you hold down, I think it's really something about it that it's really badass. You kind of build up momentum, and then you just go and you just run through stuff. Sorry, I'm not explaining it very well, but yeah, it's just a really great game. But there's one problem that I don't see that many people talking about, because they kind of hold this to a pedestal, or whatever the saying goes. But the jumping isn't that accurate, which is strange, because this is coming from Nintendo, who obviously made Mario and Kirby. As much as I don't really like those games, it's definitely very tightly controlled. But I don't know, in this game you just really have to be careful when you jump, because you might fall off ledges. And people keep like begging for a new 2D Metroid, and I think they should just leave it behind and just let people have their memories of these games, because with modern game design, I don't think people make games that respect the player anymore. They have to like hold your hand and stuff, and Nintendo included. I mean, I don't think Nintendo or any other developer is capable of making a good 2D Metroid game in this day and age. I think they should go in the Metroid Prime route, not necessarily first person, but just trying new things. Because I just, like I said, I don't think gamers like games like these anymore. I don't think developers want to make these kind of games anymore. So I don't know, I just lay it to rest. Not everything needs to. You don't always have to make new iterations. Just let something die. And next is Link to the Past, Legend of Zelda. Alluded to this earlier. And wow, this game still looks really good graphically. Like, it doesn't look pixelated at all. Keep in mind, I don't play on an HD TV, so I can't comment on how it looks on those. But wow, it really looks great still, and it's a really good game. I don't really quite know my top list of Zelda games. I know Ocarina and Majora's Mask are the top two, but this is definitely up there. I actually think Link's Awakening on Game Boy / Game Boy Color is a better 2D Zelda, which used to be a radical opinion, but people are warming up to that idea now. But yeah, this is a really good Zelda game. Basically, a top-down adventure game where you kind of go through dungeons, collecting items and such. Pretty epic adventure, using the correct term, use of the word epic, unlike most on the internet. But yeah, really good game. I mean, a lot of has already been said about this game, but there's also a I don't know how you say this in real life, but there's also a Goatsy reference in the beginning of the game. I'm not really gonna point it out to you, but if you start up the game, you'll know what I'm talking about. I'll just leave it at that. Next up is Super Castlevania 4. I believe this was the launch title. Sorry, not title, game. I hate the word using title for video games. It seems that's like marketing speak. But anyway, yeah, this is a really good Castlevania game. Kind of the classic Castlevania game, unlike what it has been since 1997 when Symphony of the Night came out, and it kind of, I don't like calling it Metroidvania because it's basically a Metroid game. Like, why would it share the name with Castlevania if Metroid came first? But anyway, I won't get into that kind of semantical debate. But yeah, this also has a really good soundtrack. Like Simon's theme, check that out on YouTube. It's really good. It's a pretty tough game, not as hard as the NES ones. Then again, most Super Nintendo iterations of sequels are pretty much easier on this NES for whatever reason. But yeah, there isn't too much I can say about this except it had really good graphics at the time, like that one rotating room. I mean, I wasn't playing this game when it came out, but people say that it was like one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. So it's kind of interesting because Castlevania hasn't really been a graphical powerhouse Well, since that day, I guess it's never really been on top. As far as Castlevania games go, I'd say the Dracula X Rondo of Blood game on Turbo CD is the best of the classic Castlevania games. You can also find that on the Virtual Console. But this is definitely up there. And next up is Contra the Alien Wars. Now, I really love Contra on the NES. The original, the arcade version kind of sucked in my opinion. I have that on Xbox Live Arcade, and I got that for free. And I don't know, it's not that good. But this game kind of follows the same path. It kind of busts your balls. Like, you only get 3 or 4 lives and one hit kills, and it requires lots of memorization. It's definitely a hardcore game. It kind of gets compared with Gunstar Heroes on the Sega Genesis or Mega Drive or whatever you want to call it. I don't consider them that similar. Gunstar Heroes, you have unlimited continues. It's more based on like explosions and such. This is basically like a survival test. I mean, I don't prefer one either way. I mean, I personally don't think any of the Contra games would even come close to the original NES one, but this is pretty fun. It's kind of a side-scrolling shooter game. I don't know if this one's co-op. I haven't tried. I only just recently got this game. I assume it's co-op because all the other Contra games are. So, yeah, good overall. And next up is Kirby's Dream Course. This isn't one of the standard Kirby games where you kind of just like suck up enemies and like gain their powers and such. This is more like kind of like a golf game. And I hear it wasn't supposed to be a Kirby game, which actually rings true to a lot of these Kirby spin-off games. I don't think Kirby's Epic Yarn was supposed to be Kirby either, but they just like kind of tacked them on so it would actually sell. I don't have too much to say about this game. It's kind of uninteresting, to be honest. Basically, like, kind of trying to hit Kirby into a hole. I don't have too much to add to that. Sorry for that piss-poor analysis, but let's move on to better games. Okay, so next up is Donkey Kong Country, and people are kind of divided on this series for some reason. I guess it's like old school gamers who grew up with the original Donkey Kong. They hated this new model change, because it does look a lot different than the original Donkey Kong. But basically, this is a platformer in every sense. I mean, it doesn't do anything new, but the controls are really tight. Among the best controls for any platform I've ever played, which is weird because when you look at the graphics, which is kind of like, I wouldn't say 3D, but it's pseudo 3D. It's kind of like, maybe if you play Mortal Kombat, it kind of looks like that. But it doesn't seem like the controls would work, but they're actually really, really good. But the one thing I will say about this series, other than how fun it is to play, is the music. This series has by far the best music of any video game series I've ever played. And the music composed by Dave, I don't know if it's David Weiss or Wise, but yeah, they fit the levels really well. They're really catchy. I usually listen to these, outside of the game, which says something about how good the soundtrack is. As far as the first Donkey Kong Country, though, I definitely consider it the weakest of the three. It's kind of simple. It's a little too simple, maybe, and the variety of levels isn't that great. Still fun overall, though. On the opposite end, though, there's Donkey Kong Country 2, which the soundtrack is the best of any individual game I've ever played, period. And it's a really fun game through and through. Tons of variety. And, in some of the later levels, when you hear the music coming out of that Super Nintendo sound chip, it's unbelievable. If you haven't listened to it already, put in Bramble Blast on YouTube, type that in the search bar, or Forest Interlude. Those are amazing tracks. And yeah, I don't have too much to add, but this is a really good game and one of my top 10 favorite games, period. And the next one is Donkey Kong Country 3. This actually came out after the N64 was released. I remember getting this game after I got the N64. And it's a little odd in that both Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong aren't playable. Which, there's a new character, Kiddy Kong, which I guess kind of plays like Donkey Kong, but somehow a little stronger despite being a baby. And this is the black sheep of the series, at least on the internet, but I think this is better than the first one. Obviously not as good as the second one, but also has a really good soundtrack, and it has a really cool opening too, if you want to search that up on YouTube. The bosses are a little weird though, kind of mechanical and strange, and the overworld, I mean, you can take it or leave it. It was a little weird. You kind of travel by boat and other vehicles. I don't really know if that was necessary. I'd rather just have a regular map screen, to be honest with you. That's pretty much all I have to say about that. But a top-notch series. Obviously, there's Donkey Kong Country Returns on the Wii. I won't get into that on this video, but let's move on to Mario. Okay, so here's Mario Paint. I don't have the mouse pictured here, but it came with one. And this is kind of useless now in many regards. I mean, everyone has Microsoft Paint these days. This really isn't that special in that regard. But one aspect that does get used a lot from Mario Paint these days is the music maker. Just about anything that gets released that has even any semblance of popularity will get redone in Mario Paint. I highly recommend that you listen to the Gusty Garden Galaxy music from Mario Galaxy, but the Mario Paint version. It's a really, really cool rendition, really faithful, it sounds great, almost as good as the actual song, which is amazing when you consider they made it out of Mario Paint. There isn't too much I have to say about this. For whatever reason, they didn't release like the other mouse-compatible games in America. This was the only one, so it kind of continues the tradition of Nintendo releasing peripherals for like only one or two games, which they've done for the past couple decades, really. And another Mario game, Super Mario Kart. Some people swear by this game and say this is the best Mario Kart game. I wouldn't go that far. Still pretty good. I like the maps. I like the music. The racing's solid, but the coin system is a little strange. I don't understand why that's there from a gameplay perspective. You kind of collect coins while you're driving, and if you don't have any coins and you get hit, you spin out. It's kind of like in Sonic. If you don't have any rings and you get hit, you die. But in this, you spin out. But if you have multiple coins, I don't really know what the point of that is, of collecting coins. Just seems useless. Another strange thing is that your AI opponents, they only have one item that they can use, but they use it all the time. So, for example, Luigi's item is the star, and he uses it the entire game. So, pretty much, you have to avoid him at all costs, and he goes faster than you because he has the star on, obviously. So, that's kind of annoying and unfair. Obviously, the rubber banding is there, but that's in all of them. But it's even worse in this game, really. But yeah, I'm sure everyone already knows about Mario Kart by now. I don't have to explain the mechanics. So, let's see, Super Mario World. Obviously a continuation of the Super Mario Brothers series. This is actually called Super Mario Brothers 4 in Japan. So, by that, I guess I would consider the Super Mario Brothers 4 since the creators themselves named it the game, supposedly. I don't know if Well, I don't know who named it, but since NCL and the Japanese branch named it Mario Brothers 4, I assume Miyamoto was fine with it. So, yeah, this is basically takes the Mario mechanics from Mario 3 and makes it a little bit more of like an exploratory game where you kind of have to find secret exits, keys, and yeah, it just requires more exploring. Whereas in Super Mario Bros. 3, it was very linear. You keep going to the right until you get to the end. And this is a bit different. And obviously, the introduction of Yoshi, which is huge. He's one of the most popular characters to this day. Although he doesn't make those cute Yoshi noises yet. In this game, he makes the vacuum cleaner noises, which is weird. There's always an ongoing debate where they say, well, which one is better, Mario World or Mario 3? For my money, I'd go with Super Mario Bros. 3. I just think it's, as a pure game, that's a lot more fun. Super Mario World, I don't know why, but it just, something about the graphical style didn't feel right. Like, the enemies are a little weird, the new enemies rather. Like, there's this lame football player enemy, like, he's in a lot of the levels, and it seems like a really lame addition. But I think it was the introduction of Wiggler, that kind of worm. I don't know if it's a worm, but it looks like a worm, and if you touch it, it gets really mad and turns red. I think that's a really cool character that stayed in the Mario universe for quite a while, and they keep using him. That's a cool enemy, but yeah, I don't know. The colors looked weird. Even the Mario model looked a little strange, in my opinion. It didn't look all that much like Mario. And I didn't really like how when he jumps, he kind of puts his arms out in parallel like an airplane. It just looks kind of lame. But I guess I'm making the game look a lot worse than it is. It's actually a really great game, one of my favorite games, but I don't know. I just like Super Mario Bros. 3 more. Just think it's a more pure game, quite frankly. And next up is Yoshi's Island, and in America it's actually called Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, but I don't think it was called Super Mario World 2 in Japan, so I actually don't even consider this canon in the mainline Mario series. Now, people might get offended by that, but I mean, would you consider Wario Land to be a Mario game, or much less WarioWare, or Yoshi's Island DS, or Super Princess Peach? I don't consider those mainline Mario games. I just consider those spin-offs. But this is a really great spin-off. And I mean, when you put this cartridge in, you look at the graphics, it's unbelievable. I mean, they could release this today and probably charge like $40 on the Wii, and it looks fantastic. It looks like a painting. I'm playing the GBA version right now, actually. Such a great game. It's not really like a Mario game. You kind of play as Yoshi, and Baby Mario's on your back. And basically you can eat enemies and then immediately turn them into eggs, and then you can aim and shoot your eggs at enemies and triggers and such. And it's a really, really fun game and great music, and I can't recommend this one enough. This is as strong as any mainline Mario game there is. And yeah, there isn't much more I can say about this one, but it's a fantastic game. Next up is Super Mario All-Stars. I don't remember how I got this game. I think I bought it actually back in the day, but it's basically a remake of Mario 1, 2, 3, and the Lost Levels, with updated graphics and sound and all that. Oh yeah, you could also save, which for some reason you couldn't even do in Mario 3. That it was actually a pretty long game, the NES one, so I'm kind of surprised they didn't add a battery save to that. But anyway, Each game is hit and miss. Hit or miss rather. Super Mario Brothers 1, for some reason I didn't really like that remake that much. The graphics just didn't look right. And I think the original Mario Brothers 1 has a really strong art style that I prefer to this one. Mario 2 and 3, however, look a lot better to me. And personally, I prefer the Game Boy Advance ones over those, but they look similar. And I think it's a really good compilation, which leads me to a similar game, Super Mario All-Stars and Super Mario World, which is basically just Super Mario All-Stars, but it includes Super Mario World. I've already talked about both games, so I won't go into this one too much. Alright, so next up is one of my favorite series, Mega Man. So this one is Mega Man 7. The first Super Nintendo. No, actually, this wasn't the first Super Nintendo Mega Man. I think Mega Man X came out before this, actually. But this is obviously the mainline Mega Man. Mega Man 6 was on the NES. 7 was on Super Nintendo. And this is a really great game, I have to say. The sprite looks a lot bigger, the Mega Man sprite. He's pretty tiny in the NES one, and I don't know, it's just a really cool opening and really cool game with really... well, I don't really have to state that it has great music, because all Mega Man games have great music, but I don't know, just a really strong game. It has all the classic trappings of a Mega Man game, kind of the rock, paper, scissors. Actually, I don't like using that phrase, it's too simplistic, but basically you kill a boss, gain its power, and then you use that to exploit the weakness of another boss. Unless you use like game facts or something, you're not openly aware of what the weaknesses are, so you kind of have to go to each level and find out which boss is weak against which item, which is fun. This game has like Rush, your robot dog companion, and it has Beat, the dude who gives you items, and Proto Man with his cool whistle tune, and yeah, just a really great game overall. Some people don't like the post NES Mega Man games, but don't listen to them. This is a great game. So, and next up is Mega Man X. Obviously the first of a very long running series. There are 8 of them. About half of them are good, but yeah, this was a really kind of a next gen version of Mega Man. Basically, you have a Mega Man who's faster. He can climb on walls. Your powers are bigger and better and badass, or more badass, whatever the phrase is. And like Mega Man 7, this is also a really great game. Don't have too much to say about this one specifically because, well, I guess I can say this is a really easy game. So if you're not good at Mega Man games, you should give this one a try. It's actually a game you can beat relatively quickly, without much hassle. So, oh yeah, and there's also the matter of if you do everything correctly, you're going to unlock what they call the reuse fireball, which is basically the Hadouken. And in the Super Nintendo version of this game, when you use the Hadouken, which is down forward, and then the shoot button, which is what you'd expect since that's the motion in Street Fighter. And he says Hadouken out loud in his Kid Mega Man voice. Unfortunately, in the Mega Man X collection, they took that sound bite off, that sound clip, which is unfortunate. But yeah, great game. Which leads me to its sequel, Mega Man X2. It's kind of a middle of the road Mega Man game. It's solid. It improves on Mega Man X in a few ways. Kind of adds more power ups to collect and such, which I guess I hadn't mention earlier in the Mega Man X series. It's well known for that you can kind of upgrade all your parts. Like you can upgrade your leg, your like your leg module, so you can dash. You can upgrade your they call it the Mega Buster, which is your like basically your gun. So when you charge it up, it becomes more powerful, and the shot is wider, so it has a better range. But yeah, in this you get more power ups. It's a bit tougher. The music actually isn't that memorable to me. It's solid, but I don't know. It's all right. But Mega Man X3, on the other hand, this game is just incredible. I know I keep praising like every game I review, but that's just how good the Super Nintendo is. But this is one of my favorite games. Period. It builds up on the previous two games, and it has a really, really phenomenal soundtrack. Like, look up Blizzard Buffalo if you haven't already on YouTube, and that's a great song, among many others. But basically, this adds more upgrades, and I don't know, the level design is really strong. I don't know, just the progression and everything is just a very, very good game. I'd actually prefer 4 over 3. 4 is on the PlayStation. But this is definitely close. I mean, even from the first level, when you press start and select start game, the music is awesome. It's just plain awesome. And you can play as Zero, which is really cool. And this is actually a really expensive game these days. It's probably like $60-$70 for the cartridge alone. But unlike a few other rare games I'm going to review later, I actually think this is worth every penny. And you can actually find this game on the Mega Man X collection, but it's not. It doesn't emulate this version. It emulates, I don't know which specific version it emulates, but it's either the PlayStation version, the Saturn version, or the PC version, which has completely different music, and the music's pretty good in those games too, but they're not as good as this one. And they have like these anime cutscenes, whatever, when you choose a level, which you can take it or leave it. I chose to leave it, but yeah, this is definitely worth every penny. And the last Mega Man game I'm going to review is Mega Man Soccer. This is a really odd game to me. I remember getting this at Funko Land back in the day, back when I'd buy any Mega Man game, because I love that series a lot, obviously. But this is kind of what Mario took this idea and kind of ran with it. But in this game, when you start the tournament mode, or whatever, the franchise mode, if you will, you start out with all your players in Mega Man. And the cool thing is it follows the spirit of the series, where you're Mega Man, and when you face like the Iceman team and you beat them, Iceman joins your team. So it's kind of like when you beat a boss, you take his power. In this case, you take their character. And to kind of differentiate this from all the other soccer games out there, each character has his own special power that he can use, like Mega Man's special attack. It's kind of like this big blast that it kind of hits the goalie, and the ball will go in the net, assuming the goalie isn't weak against your special power. And I think you only get a few of these per game, so it's not completely unbalanced. But it's a really fun soccer game, and I'm not a soccer guy, so I don't know, it's kind of weird. And I don't know if this is just my cartridge, but for some reason, the color is a bit off. As you can see on the front, it's gray, and on the back, it's a little whiter. I don't know what this... I don't know why it's scratched out. Obviously, I bought it used, and for whatever reason, a lot of people don't take care of their games well. So whatever, it is what it is. So next, I'm going to review my RPGs. Now, this one is Earthbound. This gets a lot of talk these days because for whatever reason, Nintendo, particularly of America, has pretty much ignored this series. In fact, in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, they took out the Earthbound demo out of the US version. They kind of have demos of all the Virtual Console games of the specific characters, like, you know how you can play as Fox, so there's a Star Fox demo. But they took out the Earthbound demo in the American version. So it's clear that there's something strange about this series. I mean, it was even rated by the ESRB, meaning it was planned to have come out on Virtual Console. But anyway, this is kind of a spoof of kind of 50s American culture through the eyes of Japan, which is kind of an interesting perspective. And this game actually has really good writing, especially back then when people didn't even really think about narrative like they do now. Has kind of really quirky dialogue, a lot of kind of inside jokes and such. It's really charming, especially if you're older. It kind of gives you this nostalgic feeling for like the past. And I'm not really an RPG guy, so I can't say this is one of my favorite games, to be honest. And this game probably costs like $90 on eBay, just for the cartridge. If you want like everything, like the box, manual, and strategy guide, it'll probably cost you like at least $150. I wouldn't pay that much for this. If you're interested in the game, I'd hold out hope that they one day release Earthbound on Virtual Console or something like that. It doesn't seem likely, but I wouldn't pay $90 personally. Which leads me to another game, quite expensive, Chrono Trigger. And they say this is kind of made by the Dream Team, made by the Final Fantasy creator, Dragon Quest creator, and I believe the artist who, I don't remember who the artist is, but I assume it's the based on the character models. It's the Dragon Ball Z guy. Don't remember his name, but yeah, this is basically the definitive 16-bit RPG, and it's a lot of people's favorite RPG. Just a really solid mechanics. It's not random battles. You can actually see your enemies, which was rare at the time. It just wasn't the first game to do that, but it was definitely rare. And I don't have too much to say. This is really, really well regarded, and it's actually pretty pricey on eBay if you want to get this. I'd probably get the DS version, which is basically a perfect port in every way. Even the sound quality is amazing. So, yeah, this is another charming game, and I'm not an RPG guy, like I said, so I don't have too much else to add. But an RPG I really do like is Super Mario RPG. I don't know why I didn't rate this with the Mario games, but whatever. So this was actually made by Squaresoft. Back when they were still mad at Nintendo. I don't know why they made this game. I'd be interested to read about that development cycle. But anyway, this is more of a Squaresoft game, but in the Mario universe. Like, you have all these strange characters. You can get poisoned. Like, the text looks like the Final Fantasy font pretty much. But they did a really good job with this game. They kind of took out a lot of the fluff, so you always know where you're going and you know what you have to do, and you don't really have to grind. And it's a pretty interesting story. Well, not really. I'll be honest, it's not that interesting, but it's kind of fun because you're not facing Bowser. you're facing this sword called Smithy, who overthrew Bowser. And Bowser's so upset, and his ego is crushed. So he even joins your team, so you can thwart the sword. His name is Smithy. I don't know if I already mentioned that, but yeah, it's a really fun RPG, and they added to kind of add to the interactivity. It has time button presses when you attack. So if you have a jump attack, if you're using a jump attack with Mario, right when Mario touches the enemy, you press the attack button again, and if you time it correctly, you do, like, I don't know how much more damage, but I believe it's like either twice as much or kind of 1.5 times as much, and which is really cool. So it's not passive like most other turn-based RPGs. That's a really cool mechanic that they've even continued in the Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi series. Yeah, great game. Though I hear it doesn't look good at all if you play it on HD TV, which I can understand since it uses really primitive 3D graphics. So I don't know, I'd be wary of that. I'd be wary of that. I'd play it on an SD TV if you can. And the final RPG is Final Fantasy III, which was really Final Fantasy VI in Japan, but they didn't release all of them here at the time. But I don't have too much to say. I don't have Final Fantasy in my DNA. I can't get into these games as much as I try. I don't know. I don't really like stories in games that much either. I mean, I really like the simple kind of stories, like in Eco or Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask. I like those stories. They're not too intrusive, but I don't know, these kind of long-winded stories, other than Metal Gear Solid, which happens to be like the longest, most windiest story. I love that for some reason, but I just can't get into these. The mechanics are solid, but I don't know. I never liked that Dungeons and Dragons, like that kind of aesthetic. So I don't know. I definitely understand why people like it, and this is actually what people consider the best one ever. It's between 6 and 7, and maybe a dark horse candidate would be 10. But yeah. That's all I have to say about Final Fantasy 3. And next up is a strange one. It's obviously a red cartridge. It's Spider-Man and Venom in Maximum Carnage, which is oddly enough made by LJN, a company known for making really shitty games. If you ever watch those Angry Video Game Nerd, if you watch those videos, you definitely know what I'm talking about. But I dare say this is a pretty good LJN game. It's pretty much a beat 'em up, single player only though. But it's I don't know, it's really fun, and it has a really weird rock music, which I don't know how the Genesis version sounds, but it sounds awesome here. I don't have too much to add, but it is a really tough game. This is as hard as any other game I have. You only have a few lives, and the game is pretty long, and the enemies can be brutal at times. So I've never beaten it. I don't even think I've come close to beating it. I'd probably have to use a Game Genie or something, which I may do one of these days. So yeah, it's a game I like to play from time to time. Okay, so moving on. This is Street Fighter II Turbo. So back in the day, people would argue which version is better, the Super Nintendo one or the Genesis version. The thing is, they each have their own pluses and minuses. For example, in the Genesis one, you'd have to get the 6-button controller, since the default Genesis controller didn't have enough buttons to play this game properly. You'd actually literally have to change the button layout in the pause menu on the fly, since it only has 3 buttons. You need 6, so that's pretty bad. But the music is a little bit more in line with the arcade version. I don't really know why it's a big deal. I guess people like that, but the Super Nintendo one, the models are a bit better looking, and the music, while different, I actually like it more than the Genesis one. At the end of the day, though, in the year 2011, you shouldn't be playing either version. They're both terrible. There are a lot of ways to play the arcade version, either a very close arcade port or an exact port. And when you compare this to the real arcade version, absolutely dreadful. It's slow, the sprites are smaller, missing a lot of frames. I don't know. I don't think that debate even matters anymore, which is the better version, quite frankly. And next up is a really underrated game, Aladdin. I think this is a really great platformer. It's pretty standard. It's actually made by Capcom. And the rumor is that Shinji Mikami worked on this game. And he's the guy who designed Resident Evil 4 and Vanquish and I believe Resident Evil, at least the remake. So, very high pedigree. And this is a really good platformer. And there's actually a Genesis version. This was back when, the version, when they release a game, it could be really different on both consoles. I'll get into a little bit of that later with some of the games I'm going to review. But, I consider this the much better version. The Genesis one, it looks a lot better graphically. It actually looks amazing graphically, but this is a lot more fun to play. And I played through this a lot. It's actually pretty easy. But the music is really great. So, yeah. And next up is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 4, Turtles in Time. Another great game. Probably one of the best beat-em-ups ever. This is actually better than the arcade version. It has extra levels that the arcade version doesn't have, and the graphics are pretty close, I have to say. But the problem is that this is only a two-player game. It doesn't take advantage of the multi-tap. Not that I knew anyone who ever had a multi-tap for the Super Nintendo, but it would have been nice if they added that feature so you could play with 4 players, but I don't know. It kind of sucks, but still a great game. It feels right. There's a little more depth to it. Like if you hit someone in the right area, you can hit them off screen. It's a lot of fun. It's the best Ninja Turtles game by far. They actually re-released this on Xbox Live Arcade. Turtles in Time Reshelled with updated graphics, and it's terrible. It's one of the worst games I've ever freaking played. The graphics look terrible. The music is terrible. You get unlimited lives. Now, let me talk about this for a second. In a beat-em-up, there's no reason why you should ever have unlimited lives. A game like that with no consequence is the most boring thing ever. It boggles my mind. You need a set amount of lives, or you need to be losing something like in the case of the arcades, quarters. Otherwise, it's just a matter of you just pressing the same button over and over. You don't really care if you die. You just keep going forward. It's just boring. Really boring. And, wow, this video is running pretty long. I wouldn't be surprised if I have to cut it down, but next up is Batman Returns. And for my money, it's the best Batman game there is. Yeah, I said it. I played Arkham Asylum, man. I still consider this a better game. Won't get into why I don't think Arkham Asylum is that great right here, but like a lot of other games I own, this is a beat 'em up. The sounds when you hit people sounds really, really powerful. You can definitely tell when you're hitting someone. You feel like a badass. I've talked about a lot of other beat 'em ups. There isn't too much I can add to this. It's really fun. Can't add anything else. Sorry about that. And next up is Spider-Man. I think